to In the Footsteps of Politics, the show which aims to take the broadest view of politics and people's lives. We will talk to some of the most interesting people about how they got to where they are, their successes and their failures. We'll talk to politicians, activists, writers, artists, and anyone with something of value to say. If they want to talk about their personal politics, they're absolutely welcome to, but in general it's a broader conversation, more interest in the intersection of politics and policy and where politics actually matters for the people. I'm Peter Newman, your podcast host. I've been a teacher, a journalist and a political candidate for over 20 years, and now I'm here to welcome you to go in the footsteps of politics. Welcome to the latest edition of In the Footsteps of Politics. I am delighted to be joined today by Michael McEwan, a freelance journalist who's worked for the BBC, STV and various newspapers. I got to know Michael a little bit when I came onto his show, the Independent Sports Show, to go and be a talking head about rugby. And Michael very kindly had me on to talk about that. Michael, welcome to In the Footsteps of Politics.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Peter. It's good to see you again, and thanks for coming on. And I'm sorry it was a disappointing campaign for Scotland in the rugby, but hopefully this will go better than the rugby.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. It was a bit sad, wasn't it? We had a couple of really nice chats about how much potential the Scotland team had and how everything could go, and then it all went so badly wrong.
Yeah.
Still, the one thing the Scottish rugby fans know is about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. But there's always next year. What could possibly go wrong?
Yep, and the next year after that, you would say.
Exactly. So, I mean, why don't we start with sport? So you've been a freelance journalist for a good period of time now. And like I say, you host the Independent Sports Show, which is streamed onto YouTube and everything. How did you get involved with that? What was your route into that?
So I suppose going back when I was I say I'm still a young guy, but back when I'm 17, 18, or maybe before that, I kind of always wanted to get into the media in terms of I don't know why I fell in love with it. I just did. From a very kind of young age, I suppose when you start listening to music and the radio and watching TV and stuff like that. So, and then when I was kind of 18, I joined. I joined my local hospital radio down in Glasgow, and I was there for the 8 years. And I went round the wards collecting requests from patients and all that. And then, funnily enough, I pitched an idea to do a sports report every Friday night. So I'd done that, and then I moved on to kind of community radio and kind of work my way up to basically the now. And there was a lot of good experience in terms of you had to learn how to do a show, present the show, start all your interviews about what we are doing tonight, and stuff like that. So it went back from years, and as I say, it's took me a wee while to get up to this kind of level in terms of working with the BBC. I work for different magazines in my local Barhead News. I do a column for them every month about, disability issues. And then back in 2014, when the referendum came along, I knew about Independent 5, and I wanted to get involved with them, but I wasn't quite sure what to do in terms of a music show, football, a sports show. I started the show during, I think it was the year before lockdown. And it was only me and the guy on Zoom, what we are doing now, just speaking about football, and mainly football, kind of rugby as well. And then and then a few years ago, I think it was about 2 seasons ago now, we kind of moved on to independent live. So like you've got two aspects of independence. You've got the live one, what's this, StreamYard, and it goes out to YouTube and all the rest of it. But you've also got on the radio as well. So they've got a radio platform. However, on the radio, there wasn't a big listenership. But in terms of like what we're doing now, my show is live on a Friday night. We can get up to maybe like 100, maybe more than 100 views, and it's a live show. And all the guys that are presenting with are brilliant, and yourself as well as a kind of contributor. So I've kind of built up over the years. And the furnace in this, Peter, and I include you in here, but hopefully one day we'll get to meet. But the team of people that I work with, I've never met them before because it was during lockdown. I set it up. We're always talking about meeting up, but we haven't actually like got there yet, because everybody's all over kind of like Edinburgh and Glasgow and all that, trying to get people all together at one time. But yeah, it's been brilliant, that kind of yeah, I give off speaking about sport as well. So I think the two and two goes kind of like hand in hand, and that's how I got involved in that.
That's fabulous. And have you always been a sports fan? It sounds like football is your first love, really.
Yeah, I know. You might be itching to know who my football team is, but that
well, it can be dangerous where you stay.
Yeah. So maybe I would say maybe Queen's Park or whatever. Just to be in the city. But yeah, I've always been a football fan since like I've been younger and going to the games with like family members and all that. And I also played a bit of football when I was younger. So yeah, football's really been something that I'm passionate about, and it's really been in my life, you know.
Mm-hmm. And do you, so with that, you like, I noticed on your social media, so Michael's quite active on Twitter. If anyone want to follow him, you'll find the links to his account in the show notes. But I noticed you were quite pleased that the Scottish Parliament had just voted through putting the Scotland games on terrestrial TV. And I was wondering, why do you think that's such a good idea? Should it have happened earlier? Like, what's your thoughts?
It should have happened years ago, Peter, to be honest with you, because like, I'll try not getting into my soapbox too much here, but like, I think like football fans, like we pay far too much from going to football. I mean, I was at the game at the weekend, and I'm avoiding telling you what game it was, but £34 for a ticket for the game. But yeah, I mean, every kind of like international team should be on the TV, because like I know I use this word too much, but like to inspire the next generation to come through to play for your national team. But if you're getting put on pay-per-view TV, that might put people off because of obviously the cost of living crisis and all that. And I'm quite happy it's came about, but I'm happy, but also disappointed how it's took years and years to go on the mains to go on terrestrial TV. But yeah, I'm quite good now. But because I pity that the Scotland game came on and we get beat, but that's the same as rugby, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we're very consistent. But I mean, it's interesting because I saw a meme today and it was saying, "Oh, people are always moaning that 16 to 24-year-olds aren't interested in football," and then the person underneath was saying, "But when I was 14, 13, 14, 15." I was watching Champions League on a Tuesday night. There was Europa League on a Thursday. There was games on a Saturday, so match of the day, blah blah blah, and all of that was free to air. And so, if you can't see what you can't be, right? Or you can't be what you can't see, if you do that the right way around. And so it's been so much of this stuff has been behind paywalls for so long that it's not really that much of a surprise that there's a whole sort of school generation's worth of kids that just haven't seen that much football.
And then you've got as well, like, they're talking about the Champions League, but on the Tuesday night, you've got more money because obviously that the Champions League are getting shown on Amazon as well. So, like, that's another kind of like hurdle to get over as well. And yeah, I mean, you're right, it's a paywall, but like, I think, like, we are, in terms of football, I think we are the only customer that people doesn't listen to, in terms of, like, speak to your fans, like, whether that could be, international, like Scotland, or like individual clubs in Scotland. I mean, you have, like, weird kickoff times on the Sunday and the Saturday, like 12:30, 12 o'clock, and I'll be there because I love my team and all that. But I always feel a bit annoyed because fans have got to travel from every part of Scotland and Ireland and England or whatever to get there. So, but yeah, they don't kind of like listen to the fans, and it's a shame because that's the way that they get money at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean it's been very difficult, hasn't it, from that point of view? And it's just a shame, really, because you're right. I think football fans feel really powerless, and you look at the model in Germany where they own big stakes in the club, and it's run more like a thing for the people, and the politicians in this country have really struggled to make much inroads into it because it's all sort of privatized. It's hard going.
Yeah,
for the hard-working football fan.
Yeah,
so that's a pleasing change anyway. So you mentioned that you write a column about disability for did you say it was the Barhead Times? Barhead.
It's called the Barhead News.
Barhead News. So how long have you been doing that? And like I don't know if you want to talk about disability in general, but you obviously you've had many strings to your bows with your because I forgot to say in the introduction, Michael's also been a filmmaker as well. And in fact, in 2009, was part of a partnership with Project Ability, and made a film as part of the Disability Film Festival. Has been nominated and reached the final 3 for the UK-based Flash Forward Award in 2010 as well. And that's before you get to stuff on the BBC Scotland channel and stuff. So I just wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit about sort of disability media and do you feel we're moving in the right direction in terms of coverage and everything?
I mean, I was getting better, in terms of like coverage on the telly and the media and all that, because like, when I was growing up, there wasn't any people like me on the TV in terms of people like me, people with, disabilities. I mean, like, disability was spoken about, but nobody was in the room with a disability, with that kind of lived experience.
Yeah.
An answer to, and I'll come back to that if you want, but an answer to your point about the Barhead News, that's where I'm from, Barhead, and I used to be the chair of my local disability group. So, and I was into the media at that point. So I kind of put 2 and 2 together, and I emailed the Barhead News to say, I'm here. This is what I do. Do you want somebody to write a column in the paper about disability issues, and that could be about they can give me a free rein, as it were, in terms of writing, but only sticking to the disability issues. So like that could be, well, I suppose everything affects disability now, like the cost of living crisis, Brexit, assisted dying, employment, education, and all that. So I write about what's happening in Scotland, but also what's happening in the world. If there's a kind of interesting story to kind of write about, so that's how I got involved in the Bad News, um, and when I think about it, I started with the Bad News years and years ago when I first started out. So I suppose I'm still there after all these years. And I love writing about disability issues. Um, you know, some people might say too much, but no. So that they've been very good to me at the Bad News. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I think that's really good, actually, because I don't know how many sort of columns there are like that out there, but my impression is probably not that many. And the free reign is important too, because of course, in the same way as what I'm always saying with politics, well, politics is everything. Anywhere where there are people, that's politics, right? And that's why you can talk about sport, but the same with disability. Brexit, assisted dying, and schools were three of the things you mentioned there. Well, how are those not impacting people with disabilities? I mean, what I explained to Michael off camera. If you've heard the previous episodes, the last episode of this podcast was an interview where my partner took the reins and asked me questions, which was not my usual comfort zone. But she was asking me because my father was disabled, and I had been particularly angry because of the cuts coming out of Westminster to the personal independence payments, and so because of that. I also wrote a letter that was in the National this week. So I suppose we might as well start there. How are you feeling about people with disabilities and how they're being represented by Keir Starmer's Labour Party at the moment? Getting a good deal, are they?
Yeah, what's that?
I said, getting a good deal, are they?
Yeah, as you can tell by my laugh. Very disappointed. I mean, I suppose I'll give it away because I'm on Independence Live and all that. But a lot of people on my sports show isn't pro independence because we don't, as I said to you before, like we don't talk about independence on a sports show because I feel as though that sport has got enough politics without we kind of add into it as well. But I think as a kind of out with that out as a kind of disabled person, I'm so disappointed with the both governments. To be honest with you, and the league get changed, but it didn't matter if the Conservatives came in or Labour came in. To me, it's still the same. They still stand for the same politics. The only difference is they're a different colour. But I mean, they were only in what a day, and like they took away the fuel benefit for pensioners, and then obviously a few weeks ago about cutting people with a disabilities benefits as well, and I mean that was everybody knew it was going to happen before it actually happened. It was like the worst kept secret ever. Yeah, that they're not very good at what Chinese whistling. Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so kind of disappointed, so annoyed. But I'm not surprised. And I always laugh when you hear, I don't know about you, Peter, but I always laugh when you hear politics speaking about, oh, yeah, no, I know what it's like because my wife works in the NHS or my son works in the NHS. And you think, well, if you knew that, why did you cut the bloody benefits for?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so, yeah, I've kind of fell out with politics a wee bit, more so in Westminster than Scotland, I would have to say.
But can I just say, I think that's a pretty natural and logical response to some of the behaviour. I don't think that's that surprising. because everything that's come out of Westminster for a very long time now has been pretty bleak, and it's been properly kind of more of the same. And you just want, I think actually switching off sometimes is the only response. And it doesn't feel like with Trump that's made life any easier. It's a sort of constant dopamine spike of negativity, isn't it?
I mean, a lot of people forget about when they talk about that horrible man across the road. That don't forget that they voted in a president who actually made it full of disabled people. At one, but a lot of people forgets about that, Peter. And that really annoys me. And that's supposed to be a bad example using him, but that's supposed to be a kind of like role model, and he's doing that, and the world went mad. And it annoys me as well because during COVID, everybody was nice to each other, and now we're just going back to the old ways before COVID. Maybe I'm getting too old, Peter. I don't know, but it really annoys me sometimes as well. The way that they speak as well about people, and because people's meant to be looking up to them in terms of like role models, and role models. Maybe that's a bad example to give them. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit here, but like when you give people power.
No, but you probably are giving them too much credit. But on the other hand, it's what they're supposed to be. It is like if they were living up to the ideals that you would hope for, being a role model, and you would think that one of the first things that you would hope for in a leader was that they wouldn't think it was okay to stand on the stage and mock somebody with a disability like a 12-year-old. If you had a list of things on a bingo card that you don't want in a leader, that would be pretty high up the list.
Oh God, yeah.
And so I'm not surprised at all that that's something that you remember. The problem is, I think a lot of people do forget because it floods. The phrase that Steve Bannon, his advisor, used was "flood the zone with shit," and there is so much of it that it's really difficult to keep track of all the horrible things, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's just one of many things that is good. I mean, I'm sure we could spend the whole of this a lot of the podcast speaking about it, but. And you've got to think, well, if he's doing that, you've got to think they people voted him in, so they people must be like that as well.
Yeah, or at least they weren't horrified enough by it to not vote for him, which tells you something about them, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and that's about the best case scenario.
Yep.
You mentioned Brexit as part of the things that's impacted people with disabilities. What were you thinking of specifically there?
I think obviously everyday issues affecting disabled people as well, and like I always speak about if you take the label away, it's because people with because like I'm not going to say to you, I'm disabled, I'm Michael. I say, hi, I'm Michael, and that's it. But I think that there was a big thing on Brexit as well about like people with disabilities, about getting a medication sent from other countries to here. And I think it will still affect a lot of people with disabilities. It doesn't matter. It's not because it's not in the news day in, day out. It's an issue. The issue will still be there. I always, it's quite funny you're asking me this question because, like, over COVID, you hear millions of stories about disability, social care, employment, and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, it's good that we're covering that now in the media, but these issues has been out there for about 15, 20, 25, maybe 30 years, but nobody's actually shone a light on it until we had this pandemic and say, oh yeah, these poor disabled people can't get out to, do X, Y, and Z, and it really annoyed me a wee bit. But um, yeah, so I had a bee in my bonnet about that, I suppose. But like, I suppose it was good them still highlighting it, but it took them a while to,
It's like, oh, all right, you noticed. That's good.
yeah. Maybe I'm just getting to that age now, Peter, where I just complain about everything.
But I think that's like that's interesting because, of course, I wonder how much that was. It's that trade-off between representation, and were disabled rights advocates, were they included in the Brexit negotiations? I don't know, but I could put a guess on for you. And were their voices heard? And you're right, COVID's the same, isn't it? That like there was a lot of things being spoken about. I was caring for my mum who had dementia. We were living with her and trying to deal with the social care system as well. And those issues weren't made any easier by COVID, but they also weren't invented by it. And you're right, it was a lot. There was a lot of kind of paying lip service to it, and people. You mentioned the NHS earlier. Oh, wasn't everybody so delighted to go out clapping for the NHS? And as soon as it's over, it was like, do you want a pay rise? Could we have a pay rise, please? No. So it's not as though they've been strangers to hypocrisy, really. And I do. I mean, I know you kind of mentioned the Scottish government in passing, and I feel like they've tried, but we're a long way from perfect, I would say.
I think that the difference between Holyrood and Westminster is, well, for a start, you can sit down in Holyrood. Westminster, you can sit in the stairs and all that. But I was quite glad to see that a couple of MSPs has got disabilities. Like obviously, you've got Jeremy Balfour from the Conservative Party, and you've got a few SNP MPs with. I think they've got hidden disabilities as well, and I'm sure that they've got one in the Green Party, but in the Labour Party, they've got Pam Duncan Granson. She's like the first wheelchair user in Holyrood. Yeah. So it's that's kind of brilliant to see, because I think Nicola Sturgeon said at the time that this feels like a parliament now where everybody's kind of like represented. Because obviously you've got Cab Stewart as well, from a kind of ethnic minority kind of background. But I guess feel as though, like, when you have Pam there, and you've got that lived experience, but also you still get politics that comes into it as well.
Yeah. Absolutely,
and I mean, I know Pam. I mean, I used to. I didn't used to work with her, but I used to work for this charity, and we met at a few events, and we were speaking at a few events in the past, and she's a good speaker.
Yes,
and that's what you need, I think, and especially when it comes to disabled people, there should be a voice for disabled people. Now, that doesn't mean to say I agree with everything that Pam says, but it's just brilliant to see that kind of like, and that's not even brilliant for the likes of people with disability communicating organisations to see it. It's brilliant to see the mainstream community seeing it, because a lot of people basically said in the past, well, disabled people, they can't work. But if you put Pam at that kind of level, and you get more people interested in politics with a disability, I'm sure that's a good thing.
It comes right back to you can't be what you can't see. I know Pam a little bit. I was at university with her, and
okay. Yeah.
She, and she was interested in politics then, and she was a very powerful speaker then, and she, she was a powerful politician. She wasn't a powerful disabled politician. She was a powerful person who happened to have a disability,
Yeah.
And I'm a bit like you. There's plenty of stuff I don't agree with her about. but that doesn't matter. Like, it's, you know, the fact is she's damn good at what she does, and she believes what she believes, and that's fair enough. And I agree with you. I think it is quite important. I mean, I noticed that down in Westminster that you've got there's the current, I can't remember his name, but the guy who's blind and has the dog, who's the Lib Dem.
Yeah. I don't really, as I say, I don't really watch Westminster now, only because maybe I'm putting on my political hat here, but the SNP's not really got a voice.
No, it's pretty difficult down there at the moment now. You've lost so many. That I think they're a little bit kind of making work in a sense, because they've lost the number of questions they can have. They're not on many of the committees, so it's a little bit like they're jumping up and down. They're saying the right things. They are on the right side of history, but you know,
and that's why I don't watch it. But yeah, I know that the guy that you mean, but I can't really say his name because I don't like focus on that kind of too much. I mean, I used to watch all the time. Like, I used to watch the BBC Parliament and all that. But it's a lot different now.
It feels. Do you feel like? I'd be interested in your take on this. Like, I feel like Westminster and a little bit England in general, it has just changed so much that it feels like it has very little relevance to Scotland now.
Yeah, I think that's got to go with maybe it was worse before, but I think it's got to do with a referendum as well, because then they would say, well, this is your one choice, this is your one chance, and if you say no, well, ha ha ha, and you won't get another say so for, you know, God knows how long. But I think they've actually became, maybe this is a bit strong a word to use, Peter, but they've actually become a bit bitter towards Scotland. I don't know if that's too strong a word to use, but yeah, I kind of get what you mean. Yeah, it's hard to put your thing in terms of, like, obviously I'm not going to go into this debate tonight about the she's a man or she's a woman kind of thing, and that's all I'm going to say in that. But Westminster's, you know, interjected in that point, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, that's not really, you know, this is what Hollywood's for. You know, if you don't agree with it, tough.
Listen, it doesn't. I completely agree with you. It doesn't matter what your stance is on that issue. Labour, SNP, Lib Dems, Green Party, even one of the Tories, all voted in favour of that legislation. Mm-hmm. That was the democratic will of the elected representatives of the people of Scotland. Like you say, that's the point of Holyrood, right?
Yeah.
You might think it's wrong. You might think it was unwise. You might think it was many different things. You might be totally in agreement with it. But it was not Westminster's place to come in and shoot that down. Now, I understand why on the legal technicalities that was deemed to be okay. But I think it's really annoyed a lot of people, and it actually radicalized a lot of people who were pretty agnostic on the issue. They didn't really care one way or the other. Suddenly were very, very angry because it's not Westminster's place to come and jump down on the thing. And it felt like, well, all right, you can have your wee kiddie on Parliament until we say you can't. And I think that's really upset a lot of people.
And I think that maybe, I don't know about you, I haven't heard it from people, but you would think because Westminster's done that, a lot of people would be turning to independence now, because they felt, well, this is Scotland, this is our Parliament, the people of Scotland, and you know, see, it's a magpie coming down and stealing a wee baby's, or you know, whatever sweets or, you know, whatever, and they think they can do what they want, you know, and stuff like that. But it's just really kind of annoying, especially. I mean, it's a bit like saying, well, we wanted you to say yes, but you said no, or we wanted you to say no, but you say yes. You do what we say, and I don't think that's right. But I do think people might say, well, if that's how they feel, I want our own parliament, so I'm going to vote for independence. But I don't know if that's going to, I think let's get to see if that kind of pays off in that kind of way. But
I think it probably has. I think you're probably not far wrong, because if you look at the way that independence is now, so when I first moved to Scotland, like 99, independence support had never been more than about 30%, right? And now that Overton window has shifted so that most people, even on the union side, will tell you that it's static at about 50-50. Some think it's 53, some think it's 48, but like in general, it's around that 50% mark, right, within the margin of error. Now, that's a huge shift. That is a mindset shift. I'm very conscious, obviously, as you can probably hear from my voice, wasn't born and raised here. But I'm enormously conscious that there's a lot of English people in the SNP, and I'm pretty certain that the reason is A, they like their policies, but B, lots of people move up here and go, wow, it's really unfair. This is a totally different country. It doesn't get to make a lot of decisions. And it feels just unfair. And if you've grown up down south, where I make this point a lot, but the simple fact is people in England just don't know, right? They think that it's the same country, just with a different accent. And that when they learn it's not, they start going, well, that's really unfair. So it's probably independent. And if you add into that stuff like Brexit, which personally was hugely radicalizing, and I think lots of us were like, that's completely unfair. What sort of a democratic solution sees 50% of your union vote against something and just get dragged out anyway?
I was just going to say that we started off speaking about you started speaking about Scotland games on the TV, and I think that goes back to that, because don't forget that we've not got the powers over kind of like
that's reserved, right? The broadcasting is reserved.
Yeah, and if it was in Scotland, then the games would have been on, years ago. But all I'll say to this, Peter, you've got England games on Scottish TV.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I don't like English people, because I do. I've got family down there and all the rest of it. But, it's, we want that monkey off our back. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a bad way, by the way.
No, you don't. But you're absolutely right. In the same way as during the Six Nations, you get the England game and when they're playing France or whatever on the TV, but you don't mind because you also get the Scotland, France thing.
Yeah.
If it's the tournament, if you're just randomly being shown England games when Scotland, I mean, you know yourself that you get nights when Scotland are playing and you can't see it.
No, yeah.
Because you got to watch the England game.
I mean, the thing is, not that we're brilliant at football, Peter, no, but the only time we get to see Scotland on TV is at World Cups or Euros.
Yeah.
I mean, how's that fair? I mean, if you look at Wales, if you look at Northern Ireland, Wales is on, I can't remember the channel that they use, but Northern Ireland is on BBC Northern Ireland and all that. We're the only national team within so-called Great Britain with food banks and all that we have to pay money to watch.
To see your national team, it's not.
So that kind of tied into the answer that we were talking about as well. Even though I went back to football, but that's one example that I could give you.
Yeah. Tell us about your filmmaking then. Are you still making? I mean, you obviously sound very busy, but are you still making films as well? Would you go back to it if you're not?
Well, if people ask me to, and the money's right, no, I'm on the case. I would like that short film that I was nominated for, that the one you referred to. I was the only one from Scotland get nominated. Or maybe I should say I was the only one from Scotland that put their name forward. But don't mind that.
I was going to say, you definitely shouldn't say that. You were the only one from Scotland nominated.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, edit that bit out if you want. But I got to the final four. I never won, but I was a wee bit disappointed, but I wasn't, because it was still a big achievement for me. Because I think the Fast Forward Festival is a kind of maybe a UK thing, or and to get into the final, and for me, my mum and dad to go down to, I think it was in Oxford, and they were showing a big kind of Sydney World in there. Or maybe it was before Sydney World. I can't remember, but it was years and years ago. Talking about when I was 25 or something at the time. But yeah, I would go back to it. I kind of enjoyed it at the time. I would have a lot more to say now than then, because then it was just talking about my disability and like how it affects me and all that.
Yeah. So what, you could do an update. That'd be quite interesting. Are you still, I'm just trying to think how to phrase this. Are you still interested in disability in that sense, or is it just now, it's just part of what you do, and you'll be much happier focusing on the sport and things?
Yeah, this is the challenge that I'm facing at the moment, but it's not only me, Peter. It's like other people in the media, because I want people to, for me to come on podcasts like this one, and sports shows, apart from my own, and politics shows, like debate night, question time and stuff like that, and talk about politics like what we're doing tonight. It just so happened that I've got a disability, but like I don't need to speak about disability all night.
Yeah.
I can speak about disability all night, but I don't want to be pigeon-holed, if that makes sense. And I think the media is quite, well, in my own opinion, is quite bad for that. Yeah, and I often wonder, think that if I wasn't disabled, we could still have the same chances as I have now. And I can't really answer that one. Sometimes I say yes if I'm having a bad day at work and if I'm not busy. Because I have had a lot of opportunities in terms of like making documentaries for Radio Scotland and reporting on disability issues. And I think it makes me a bit different. Well, different. I don't like that word, but you know what I mean? In terms
I do.
of that experience. But yeah, I would want somebody to phone me up to go on the show to talk about football or talk about politics or current affairs. But yeah, that's been my bonnet that I've got. But as I say, I'm not the only one, because like I don't know the stats, but there's very few disabled people in front of the camera and behind the camera. It is getting better, but there's still a way to go in that one.
Yeah, but it's interesting because, of course, the advice you give to young journalists is find your niche, right? What are you interested in? What do you got that other people don't have? Where can you get in the door? Because there are specialist publications for almost anything. So what's your niche? And it's really tough, isn't it? Because I'm sure I've heard journalists of color talking about this as well, that they're not the representative for every single person of color. That you are not a disabled sports journalist. You're a sports journalist, a freelance journalist who has a disability. In this, in the same way as whatever. And so there's a tension there, isn't there? And I think the media landscape is pretty tough at the moment, isn't it? Are you finding it quite tough as well? I think a lot of us are really struggling.
I think it's tougher than what it was before, like lockdown and the cost of living crisis and all the rest. Only because, like, especially in print journalism, I don't know if you find this, but there's hardly any money.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do work for the big corporations like BBC and STV, you know, they're going to pay you because obviously it's against the law. Because to use you for, like, say, half an hour or doing a podcast like this without paying you, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not. You're thinking to be a millionaire overnight, you know. But at least you've got something. But yeah, I forgot that we had that connection as well, because that was where I met you. That the on WhatsApp on that group. So I completely forgot about that, Peter. Sorry, but yeah, it's getting tough, and I'm thinking that tough, but I'm also thinking that tough as in pitching ideas, and I think they're brilliant ideas. But all it takes is an editor or somebody said, no, I don't fancy that. So it could sound good to you, but if I email you, then you'll be saying, nah, that shit, that idea, that rubbish. So, you know, but sometimes you've just got to keep going, but it's difficult.
It is, and I think it's a profession that breeds resilience, isn't it? You just have to keep bouncing back. And it does teach you, I suppose, not to be too precious about your ideas. It's like, oh, well, I better have another one then. Yeah, I think everybody's fighting. So, what is next for you? What's on the horizon?
I suppose what's on the horizon is keep doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel as though that I was having this conversation with my partner the other night, but I only have this conversation with her when I'm not getting any work, in terms of I wish I was kind of full time somewhere. Yeah. Because if I was full time somewhere, I wouldn't be out of work, if you know what I mean. Whereas freelance, you know yourself that you've got to sell yourself. Not in that way, obviously.
No. Don't worry, Michael. I'd go broke if it was in that way. Believe me.
Yeah, I think I would be the same. But yeah, but I don't know. One of the last springs to my bow, Peter, I've just started doing some acting work as well, and over the past, well, I would say before COVID, and I've got an agent and all that as well, and I've had a few auditions, but yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm quite happy. I'm happy, but I'm not happy, if that makes sense. You would write the perfect world, but nobody has the perfect world.
No, it's not. And I mean, where are independents live with you in this? I mean, are they quite happy with what you're doing? They're happy to see you carry it on.
Yeah, I mean that's, as you know, that's run by volunteers. But the difficult part is if you ask people to do something and they pulled out the last minute, it's really a bit annoying. But you need to remember that they're volunteers. But no, I've got a good relationship with Kevin, and if I get Independence Live, yeah, I mean, I just do my show once a week. My show goes out on a Friday, so I usually start working on it like tomorrow, to get everything ready for Friday, and then we do a show on a Sunday as well to look back at the weekend football action. So yeah, I'm happy that I'm doing that, and I'm comfortable working with the guys, and the guys know me and I know them, and all that, you know.
Yeah, that's a good. When it's comfortable like that is really nice. I'm assuming you're no longer doing hospital radio. You were saying you did that for 8 years, didn't you?
Yeah, and I would maybe say that if people's watching this, if they want to, maybe you would agree. I don't know, but like if they want to get into the media, I think like that's a good way to start because I think you say get there on like it's okay. Maybe I'm going to get into trouble because you're a teacher, but it's okay getting qualifications and all the rest of it. But you really need to learn on the job, and if you make mistakes, well, that's fine. But
As a teacher, I tell the kids all the time the schooling is absolutely the least important bit of their education. It's like the world's worst video game. You get little pieces of paper that open the next level for you, but all you're doing is just easing the path, aren't you? You're going to learn so much more by doing it.
And I think as well that because I'm getting older, I'm maybe not wiser. I always think about things like that, and like on a, you could get a high qualification on a bit of paper when you leave school, but as I always say, that's not going to guarantee you a job. Like you could be qualified for that, but you could be working in a call center. No offense to people working in call centers, but it's totally different to what you wanted to do, I suppose.
Yeah. If you're not, that's it. If people's ambition is to work in a call center, that's fine. It's when the people are trapped in these McJobs, hating their life, that's when it's a problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you said,
and that's a problem with people with disabilities as well, because I just got an article last week. I don't know if you saw it about the disability employment gap compared to non-people with disabilities. And I wanted to highlight it because people assume that people with disabilities don't work, but B, they want to work but not given this chance by the employers or whatever. And is the building accessible, like to get in? So it's all these kind of like issues that you've got to think about. So I felt as though it was important to kind of like highlight that kind of like issue.
So yeah, what I was wondering was what could we do better? I mean, obviously a lot of the disability stuff is reserved to Westminster, but just in general, is it access to buildings? Is it a signage? Is it legislation? What could we be doing better in Scotland to make life easier to get disabled people into work and close that gap?
I mean, a lot of people say money, but I suppose money has got some part to play, but like, well, in a way it has because the access to buildings, but I would say maybe better awareness of people with disabilities, like, and a bit like what we've been saying all throughout the podcast, Pete, about like, take away the deaf and disabled, just look at the person. And I think that there has to be more awareness raising of that. But yeah, and I think like a lot of employers would have to step up to the mark more because I mean it all begins when you leave school, like what you want to do in your life and all that. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of things, and a lot of people might say a lot of money is the be all and end all, but it's really not. It's more to do with the raising awareness.
Well, you're certainly doing that, and I like the fact that, like you say, it's raising awareness by just being and just doing and letting people come on, let them see different people. It's that diversity in the true sense of the word, isn't it? Is that yeah. I've got glasses, you've got this, blah blah blah, and the visible thing, and I like the fact that exactly what you're saying, that you shouldn't have to be the spokesperson for every single person with a disability.
Yeah.
It's as somebody that follows Portsmouth football team, we all have our own crosses to bear, and I think Anyway, listen, Michael, I'm going to wrap it there. Thank you ever so much for joining me on In the Footsteps of Politics. I really appreciate that. I suppose I have one final question for you, which is, what is the question that you wish people would ask you that they never do? I know it's a harsh question.
What? That is a good one. You've got one there. You've actually, from a journalist to a journalist, you've actually quieting down the kind of journalist. I think going back to early on what we were saying about like no labels, no walls, no barriers. And I know that's a lot of answers into one, but like in terms of like the media, if you want to say that, like how did you enjoy the football game today, or did you enjoy the rugby, or what about politics? What about this? What about that? Instead of saying, well, this disabled boy is in hospital, what? Or maybe that's a vague example, but giving you, non-disabled issue, if that makes sense. I know that was a a bit of a messy answer that I gave you.
No, not at all. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's you want it's not the it's the story. It's not the disabled story. It's the which I think is quite a good theme for this podcast. Listen, thank you so much for coming on, Michael. I really appreciate that.
Top man.
You have been listening to In the Footsteps of Politics. I will put the links to Michael's Twitter account on in the show notes for you. You can find his website, which is michaelmckewanmedia.com. You can also, I don't know where it would be. You can find him on YouTube on every Friday night, where the Independence Live Sports Show is going on. I noticed you've just been doing some stuff about the Tour de France there, starting from Scotland as well, Michael. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of sport to go around.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I look forward to you being with us again next time we decide to go in the footsteps of politics. And it's goodbye from me, and I suppose goodbye from Michael.
Yep. See ya.
That's all we have time for this week. Thank you for listening to In the Footsteps of Politics. You can email the show, footstepsofpolitics@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook by searching for Footsteps of Politics. If you've enjoyed the programme, please rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your pods, and you can find us on YouTube as well. In the Footsteps of Politics was written, hosted and produced by me, Peter Newman, and the music was Joyful Footsteps by Ukrainian producer Diamond Tunes, who you can find the links to in the show notes. Have a lovely week. We'll see you next time when we go in the footsteps of politics. And remember, politics is decided by those who show up.